Hi everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at recreating the Adobe logo in Figma. So here we have two objects that I downloaded from Adobe's website. We have the icon, the Adobe logo mark, and here we have the full logo including the logo type. As far as I know, the font that Adobe decided to use for their own logo is called, let me write this down, Adobe Clean. Right? And the Adobe Clean font is available only for developers, which means it's kind of complicated to get. So we're gonna focus mainly on the logo mark, on the icon, on the symbol, which is also, I believe, to be more interesting than simply typing in the word Adobe with a specific font. So I don't think that's really, there's any challenge there. So let's focus on the icon, on the symbol that Adobe is known for. So when we take a look at this logo, first of all, let's figure out some proportions, right? You can see that when we select the whole logo, we get 113 by 100, right? So let's actually use a rectangle tool with dimensions of 113 by 100. I'm going to also make it black and partially transparent so that it's visible. And then what you get is basically a cutout in the shape of a stylized letter A. So we're going to have to figure out how big, for example, this triangle actually is, what are the dimensions of the triangle, and then what's the width of this stroke, let's say, and just figure out all these angles. So let's actually measure a couple things, right? So as you can see, the left triangle has the endpoint somewhere around here, right? So the total width of the triangle at the top side is going to be around 41 pixels or points. Let's set this rectangle to be also black and transparent, and let's just figure out what's the actual precise value of this. So this appears to be somewhere between 41.5 and 41, right? So this single square, this grid that you can see, that's the pixel grid, and this is 41, this is 42. This will be 41.5 and this is 41. So this, the end of this triangle appears to be somewhere at around 41.25, maybe a bit more to the 0.5 mark. So let's say 41.35 or maybe 41.3. Yeah, I think that's the closest. But as you can see, at the same time, we are not aligned over here. So let me actually set the position of this rectangle to be 278.5, I think. Yeah, that seems about right. So that would be 278.5 on the position, on the X position, but then we will have to adjust this, right? So let's keep adding 0.1 to the width. So 41.4, 41.4, 0.5, 0.7 maybe, 0.75, 41.8. And yeah, I think 41.8 might actually be the most precise value we get for the top of this triangle. So that would be the width of the triangle. What's the height? I think we could use simply 100, right? Because that's the total height of the logo. So this triangle is going to be 41.8. Figma keeps rounding these numbers. Let me type in 41.8. 41.8 times 100. So that's the dimension of this triangle. Now we actually need to take this rectangle and turn this into a triangle. So I'm going to press enter, then select this corner and press shift backspace, and then shift enter to commit the changes. This is going to remove this edge and also heal the space in between so that we don't have to join these 2 points, right? So we got a triangle specifically as it is contained within the logo, right? So now we can take this and align that, put that on top of our basic rectangle that we have already created, right? We have a rectangle with these dimensions, then a triangle with these dimensions. Now we can continue. We also know, or at least we assume, that this triangle is similar or identical in width and height to this one, which means I'm going to duplicate this. So let me press Command D with this triangle selected, flip it by pressing Command H, and then selecting this new triangle and this rectangle, and then pressing Option D to align them to the right. Right, so you can see that we are kind of starting to approach the general shape of the logo. Now let's quickly think about another assumptions we can make about the geometry of this logo. we can also assume that this specific angle, right? Let me actually create a sketch for you. So this specific angle is identical to this angle, and of course also this angle, and then also this angle, but flip. Basically all the angles in the logo are going to be identical. And what we can also assume is that this angle right here, is going to be twice the amount of this angle we have right here. Why is that? Mathematically speaking, if these two lines are parallel, so if these two lines are parallel, let me change the color of this so you can see it better. If these two lines are parallel and these two lines are parallel as well, right? These two, and this triangle is also this triangle but flipped, we could assume that when you take these two triangles that we have already created and you align them precisely, right? You make their edges touch like this, and then you merge these two by selecting those and going here to union selection, and then you flip it vertically. The angle you get right here is this one, right? So these two angles are going to be identical. I think that is a reasonable assumption to make, right? That this is the identical angle. What this also means is that we can use these two merged triangles that we have created right here, right? This union of two triangles, and then make it smaller and use that as a base for this specific shape in the middle of the logo, right? So this triangle right here will serve as a basis for this shape, while at the same time it's basically consisting of these two triangles. This might be a very complicated, overcomplicated explanation for something that is very simple, but that's just the way I understand, or the best way I can think of to approach this. Anyway, let's use guides. Let's use Figma guides to measure these values. So the height of this triangle appears to be, measure this. I think we can round this up probably, and this value as well. I think this will be 63 pixels tall, right? 63 pixels. So when I duplicate this triangle and put it over here and align that to, well, first the center of the basic rectangle and then the bottom of the basic rectangle of the base of our logo, I think we are getting closer to the final Adobe logo, right? When I overlay it on top of the original logo, you can see it's almost identical. Well, it's probably identical. So let's continue. Let's make some more assumptions about this logo, and we need to measure two more things, or one more thing specifically. I think we need to measure the distance between this side and this side, right? So we need to measure basically this distance. And this distance appears to be 20, more or less, right? Maybe 19.8 or something like that. But yeah, I think we can go for 20. That would be 20. And then what we can also assume again is that this angle again is going to be repeating itself. And as you can see, this corner right here appears to be precisely in the horizontal middle of the logo. But actually, now that we measured this, it actually isn't, right? It's not here, but it's slightly moved to the right. So that's why we measure things. But again, I'm going to use this triangle we have on the side. I'm going to duplicate it and make it 20 pixels tall. So we get the basis for this cutout right here, right? Now we actually need to make a shape that goes like this. We need to make a shape that goes like this, right? To have something we can use for cutting out the final shape. So we need to create a shape like this using this triangle. Why don't I create another rectangle that is 20 pixels tall, and then I'm gonna also set this to black and transparent, and I'm gonna move this closer to the triangle, and at the same time I'm gonna select these two, merge them by going to Union Selection, and then pressing Command E, which will flatten our selection. And now we can press Enter on our shape, select this new point, and press again Shift Backspace. And this will remove this cutout and create the shape that we need, right? So this is the shape that we actually need. Now we need to figure out how to position this shape onto our logo in progress precisely so that we can cut this out from the middle triangle. So let's again measure this distance from this corner to this corner, right? So let's use a rectangle, and I'm going to create a rectangle that is precisely wide as this distance. I think we can round this little value, I think, and we can assume that this is going to be 66 pixels, right? We've measured this to be 66 pixels. I'm going to move this by holding down my shift key to only move this vertically right here. Then what I'm going to do is select this object that we have right here, select the base rectangle, and then press Option S. This will align them to the bottom, right? And now what we need to do is take this shape and align that to the right with this rectangle, which is equal to this distance, right? Let me do that. Select both of these, Option D, right? So now we have positioned this shape within the logo correctly. So let me select this shape, press Enter, select these two vertices, keep pressing my arrows to the left, and then press Enter to commit these changes. So it seems to me that we are almost done. What we need to do now is take this triangle, and using this shape right here in this precise position, we're gonna cut through this shape, right? So let me select it, select the triangle, and then go to this menu and say Subtract Selection. And as you can see, we have arrived at this precise shape that is in the original logo. And we are basically there, right? We are basically finished. Let me select these three shapes that we have. Then let me sample this color, and then we can select the base rectangle and remove it. Now we can select these shapes, group this group, and name this group Adobe Logo Recreated in Figma. And here it is. Let me note this down for you. Figma, and here will be the original. So this is the original, and this is what we have created. I think it is close enough, right? I think it's almost identical. And that's how you recreate the Adobe logo in Figma. As you can see, we measured the overall dimensions that are being repeated across this logo. We also made a few assumptions. And yes, a little bit of geometry knowledge is required. But overall, I think all these things, you're able to deduce them on your own without any advanced math knowledge. You just need to know about angles, basically just about angles, right? And parallel lines and how they work. Basically just the absolute basics of trigonometry, and not even that, I think, right? So I hope this has been a fun exercise. I hope you have learned something new and that this video helped you. If you'd like to see more famous logos being recreated in Figma, let me know by leaving a like, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for tuning in, and keep on learning Figma.